Good evening, everyone. Welcome back. I'm Dr. Bright, and tonight we're talking about Zamfara, a state that has been at the center of serious security challenges in Nigeria. Over the past few weeks, there have been reports of deadly ambushes, kidnappings, and arrests of suspected armed criminals. The situation has left communities shaken, families in fear, and the state trying to respond with every resource at its disposal. If you're watching this video, remember to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. We bring you accurate, clear, and understandable news every time. Now, here's what's happening. Zamfara has witnessed a series of attacks that have left many dead and dozens abducted. Villages have been raided, homes burned, and people forced to flee their farms. In one recent incident, armed groups attacked a remote village in the night, abducting children, women, and men, moving them into nearby forests. Families were left terrified, unsure if their loved ones would return. The local security forces moved quickly to respond, but the terrain is difficult, the armed men are mobile, and the communities are scattered across large, hard-to-reach areas. This isn't new to Zamfara. For years, the state has struggled with armed groups often referred to as bandits. These groups carry out kidnappings, rustling, and attacks on villages, and their operations are often tied to criminal networks and at times disputes over land and resources. Recently, some of these groups have been described in media as Fulani Militias. It's important to clarify that Fulani is an ethnic group, and many Fulani people are peaceful farmers and herders. But some armed criminals include Fulani members, which is why the label sometimes appears in news reports. We must remember not to confuse ethnicity with criminality. The security forces have been acting. In the last few weeks, military units carried out ambushes against some of these armed groups. In these clashes, some of the attackers were neutralized, weapons recovered, and at the same time, a few security personnel were injured. Alongside these operations, police and other agencies have been making arrests. Over a dozen suspected criminals were detained, and some kidnapped victims were rescued. These arrests are important. They show that authorities are responding, but they are only one part of the solution. To truly stop these crimes, there must be a follow-up with fair trials, dismantling of criminal networks, and community support. The effect on the people living in Zamfara cannot be overstated. Families live in constant fear, children miss school, farms go untended, and health services are hard to reach. Reports suggest that in some areas, the insecurity is worsening outbreaks of diseases because people cannot access proper medical care. Communities feel abandoned at times, relying on local vigilante groups for protection, which can sometimes help, but other times complicate the situation. The government and humanitarian groups are working, but challenges remain. NGOs are helping with rescue operations, providing food, water, and medical care to affected communities, but the security situation often prevents them from reaching the most vulnerable. The military and police continue operations, but the armed groups are highly mobile and often operate in difficult terrain, making the response complex. You might wonder why these armed groups continue to operate despite arrests and ambushes. The reason is complex. Many young men turn to criminal activity because of poverty, lack of jobs, or disputes over farmland. Illegal mining, cattle rustling, and ransom payments provide income for these groups. Weak law enforcement, corruption, and delayed judicial processes create opportunities for these groups to thrive. Past attempts at peace or amnesty programs have sometimes provided temporary relief, but have often failed to address the root causes. That is why the problem continues. For ordinary people in Zamfara, the human toll is heartbreaking. Witnesses describe being forced to hide in forests, families separated, livestock stolen, and homes destroyed. The psychological trauma is long-lasting. Children especially suffer from fear and instability, and rebuilding trust in the community and in security forces is a slow process. Security forces emphasize that their operations are ongoing. They are targeting armed groups in ambushes and raids, recovering weapons, and rescuing victims. Police continue to make arrests aiming to disrupt the criminal networks. Authorities have also called for communities to report suspicious activities and cooperate with security agencies, stressing that everyone's safety depends on working together. It's important for everyone watching to understand the balance here. Military operations and arrests are necessary to stop attacks, but long-term peace depends on addressing the reasons why people join these groups. This includes providing education, jobs, access to land, and economic opportunities. Conditional amnesty programs where offenders lay down arms in exchange for training and work opportunities can help, but they must be carefully monitored to ensure criminals don't return to crime. Humanitarian organizations are playing a critical role. They provide medical care, psychological support, and help families restart their farms. This work is often difficult and dangerous, but it is essential to prevent communities from collapsing under fear and uncertainty. The support helps restore a sense of normalcy, even amid ongoing threats. I want you to take a moment to think about the communities affected by these attacks. Imagine children who have lost parents or homes, or families hiding in forests, afraid to return. That is why the work of security forces and humanitarian groups must continue, and why everyone in Nigeria, and even outside Nigeria, can support awareness about these issues. Before I continue, I want to remind you again, if you find this video informative, please hit the like button, subscribe, and click the bell. Share this video so more people understand what's happening in Zamfara and can join the conversation about solutions. We also need to consider how arrests and ambushes affect the long-term stability of the state. Arrests disrupt criminal activities and allow some victims to be rescued, but they do not automatically stop the networks behind these crimes. Many armed groups are supported financially through ransom payments or illegal trade. So authorities must combine arrests with strategies that address the money, planning, and networks that allow these crimes to continue. Next, let's talk about what local communities are doing to protect themselves. In many villages, community defense groups have formed. They patrol areas, provide warnings, and sometimes fight back against attackers. These groups are brave, but they also face dangers, and their involvement can escalate conflict if not coordinated with official security forces. NGOs encourage training and coordination to reduce risks to civilians. The human angle continues to be heartbreaking. Families describe nights of fear, hearing gunshots nearby, hiding children in safe rooms, and wondering if they will survive until morning. In some cases, entire villages have fled to neighboring towns or forests to escape attacks. These stories show the real cost of the insecurity beyond statistics or headlines. Now I want you to imagine the tension in the air. Roads empty, farms unattended, schools closed. This is the reality for thousands of people in Zamfara. And every day authorities try to respond with patrols, arrests, and rescues. The cycle of attack and response continues, but there are signs of hope when victims are rescued and families reunited. As we continue, it's important to understand that these attacks in Zamfara are not random. They are part of a pattern where armed groups exploit weaknesses in security and governance. When security forces carry out ambushes or arrests, they disrupt some activities temporarily, but the groups often adapt, move to new areas, or reorganize. This is why the state must pair security actions with strong community support, economic programs, and clear policies to reduce incentives for young people to join these groups. Families affected by these attacks are living in fear daily. Many have fled to neighboring villages or towns, sometimes walking long distances to find safety. Children are missing school, which affects their educations and future prospects. Farmers leave their land untended, causing food shortages and loss of income. Mothers and fathers struggle to care for children while dealing with trauma. Health services are stretched and even simple medical care becomes difficult to access. For viewers watching, it is important to understand that security crises like these affect every part of daily life. Security forces have stepped up patrols and raids. They are trying to track down armed groups using intelligence and community tips. In some operations, they have rescued kidnapped victims and recovered stolen property. Arrests have been made, showing that law enforcement is active. These efforts are vital, but authorities admit that long-term peace requires more than just arrests. The root causes of the conflict, poverty, lack of jobs, land disputes, and criminal networks need to be addressed. Let's talk about the children and families affected. In one report, a village was attacked at night. Families hid in the bushes while their homes were raided. Some children were taken and later rescued by security forces, but the psychological impact remains. Children who witness violence can develop long-term trauma, fear, and distrust. Organizations working in these communities provide counseling and support, helping families rebuild their lives. Every rescue, every intervention is a step toward healing. I want to remind everyone watching, if you appreciate this kind of reporting, please hit the like button, subscribe, and share this video. Awareness helps communities and encourages solutions. The more people understand the situation, the better the chances of coordinated action and support. Now let's look at the broader picture. Zamfara's insecurity affects neighboring states as well. Armed groups often move across borders between states, making coordination essential. Security forces need to work together across state lines, sharing intelligence and strategies. Federal, state, and local authorities must collaborate closely. At the same time, local communities must report suspicious activities and cooperate without fear, knowing that their safety depends on joint effort. The armed groups often get money through ransom payments, illegal mining, and other criminal activities. This makes it harder to stop them because even if some members are arrested, others can continue operations. Authorities have started targeting every rescue, every intervention is a step toward healing. I want to remind everyone watching, if you appreciate this kind of reporting, please hit the like button, subscribe, and share this video. Awareness helps communities and encourages solutions. The more people understand the situation, the better the chances of coordinated action and support. Now let's look at the broader picture. Zamfara's insecurity affects neighboring states as well. Armed groups often move across borders between states, making coordination essential. Security forces need to work together across state lines, sharing intelligence and strategies. Federal, state, and local authorities must collaborate closely. At the same time, local communities must report suspicious activities and cooperate without fear, knowing that their safety depends on joint effort. The armed groups often get money through ransom payments, illegal mining, and other criminal activities. This makes it harder to stop them because even if some members are arrested, others can continue operations. Authorities have started targeting these financial networks and trying to cut off funding. This is a long-term strategy, but an essential one. Disrupting money flow makes criminal operations more difficult to sustain. Humanitarian groups are working to help families, providing food, water, and medical care. They also help with rebuilding homes and schools. The work is dangerous, but it is essential. Communities cannot recover without support. People living in Zamfara need both security and help to rebuild their lives. Let's discuss why conditional amnesty programs are important. In the past, some programs offered armed individuals a chance to lay down weapons in exchange for work or training. When properly monitored, these programs can reduce violence and reintegrate individuals into society. However, without careful oversight, there is a risk that criminals will return to illegal activity. Authorities need to combine security operations with economic and social programs to provide sustainable peace. At this point, I want you to think about the courage of local people. Villages organize patrols, warn neighbors, and sometimes risk their lives to protect others. While their efforts are admirable, they also face danger. Cooperation with official security forces can help reduce risks and improve protection for everyone. Again, I remind you, like this video, subscribe, and click the bell so you stay updated on real-time developments. Sharing the video spreads awareness about what is happening in Zamfara and helps people understand the scale of the problem. Now, looking at the psychological and social impact, the trauma experienced by children and adults is real. Families need counseling, social support, and community rebuilding. Schools must reopen safely. Health services must reach affected communities. Without these interventions, the effects of violence last far beyond the attacks themselves. Authorities continue to make arrests. Each arrest helps disrupt criminal networks and may save lives. However, the state acknowledges that arrests alone cannot solve the problem. Coordinated efforts between communities, government, and humanitarian organizations are critical. Long-term peace requires addressing poverty, joblessness, land disputes, and weak governance. I want to focus now on the human stories because they remind us why this matters. A mother describes hiding with her children in a forest while attackers raided her village. She feared for their lives, but was later reunited with them thanks to a rescue operation. Families who have lost homes and livestock struggle to rebuild. Communities are resilient, but the road to recovery is long.